Welcome, everyone. I am so delighted to share my next guest with you. This is Assel El Baba. Assel spent a decade working in the Canadian financial sector. She grew her career in financial planning, managing a portfolio of $100 million on Bay Street. While she enjoyed helping clients with crucial financial decisions and strategies, she realized that the conversation was missing major elements. Assel went back to school to become a psychotherapist, pivoting into the world of financial therapy in March of 2020 to not only thoughtfully address her clients' financial challenges, but also attend to the emotional, psychological, behavioral, and relational hurdles that are intertwined. Assel is the CEO of Holistic Optimal Wealth, a practice on a mission to explore and heal people's relationship with money. She is a member of the Financial Therapy Association and the Canadian Association of Psychodynamic Therapy. She is a thought leader, public speaker, and advocate for holistic wealth. Assel, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
You know, I'm so intrigued by your particular career trajectory. I had not even heard of financial psychotherapy before meeting you. So I'm curious to know, so you work on behavioral, psychological, relational, emotional aspects of money with your clients. What was happening before you decided to get certified as a psychotherapist? What were you finding in your clients that made you make that decision? What was happening when you were working with them that just wasn't really working, in effect?
Sure. So in my role as a financial planner, I spend a lot of hours putting together a proper financial plan for a client. Like sometimes it takes upward of 10 hours to put one plan together. So sometimes while this was very important and clients recognized the importance of a financial plan, it still was a document that sat in someone's drawer and collected dust. And that was very frustrating because I would invest so much in trying to achieve certain outcomes, and there was continued to be a barrier between what clients knew and what they're able to. Oh my God, Jasper, quiet.
Yeah, something to say about financial planning too.
My dog decided to participate all of a sudden. Okay, I gave him a bone right before this talk, but someone's at the door, I think, distracting him.
Okay.
So essentially, sorry about that.
Okay.
Essentially, I realized and through working with different walks of life, there's a universal pattern that emerges across the board, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different net worth. The concept of money is a very emotional topic, and therefore I needed different tools because you can't address an emotional problem with logical tools. That's what prompted me to go back to school, become a therapist. I'm now a therapist in training, and I'm really excited about this field that's expanding. It actually just started around 2008 after the market crash. That's what emerged and helped this realization that we need an interdisciplinary field to start talking about money from a different angle.
That was such a perceptive thing for you to notice, and I also recognize that the timing of that, March of 2020, that was just when the COVID pandemic hit too. So talk about an emotionally charged time. It was a real time of transition for a lot of us. Why do you think money is such an emotionally charged topic? What is it about money that...
Well, money's connected to so many layers of our identity, our self-worth, the relationship we have with ourselves and the world. And therefore, all these layers are complex and deep on their own. So money somehow is interrelated with all of them. And that's what makes it very emotionally charged. The other part of it is the extremely strong, universally held beliefs around what money is and what isn't. Like on its own, money is just a neutral concept, but it has so much projected meaning that's passed on from one generation to the other, from one culture to the other. So it creates this extremely strong embedded belief system about this one area in our lives, and yet this one area actually impacts all the other areas, which makes it a very complex thing to explore.
So what would you say, what are some of the typical challenges that your clients face in their relationship with money?
There's a whole bunch of spectrum of challenges, because I work with clients of all different ages. My youngest client was 23 and my oldest was 74. So I literally worked from somebody who's starting their career to somebody who's already retired for a decade. So the challenges I see, however, across the board is people have a hard time understanding where they stand on this topic. It's so vague in their life, and it's very confusing because they either grew up in households where that was not a topic that you openly talk about, or there's a lot of relationship problematic dysfunctional relationship with money, be it in how they spend or how little they earn, or the secrecy around it altogether, as well as the shame and the guilt and the really complex emotions that this money, situation triggers. A lot of it with high anxiety and stress. I think someone is at my door. That's one of my dogs. Stop the recording for 1 second.
Okay, I'll pause.
All right, 1 second.
So we were talking about how money is so emotionally charged, and you were saying it's a very layered kind of topic for people. So what do you mean by that it's so layered?
So essentially, a lot of the times, depending on the culture we come from, in some areas, your net worth is equivalent to your self-worth. Even though you may not consciously hold that particular statement to be true, you act as if it is. So you're constantly comparing your success with the success of your peers, comparing your materialistic accumulations with those around you, trying to keep up with the Joneses. There's so many things that impact our life satisfaction as a result of that social comparison, which only worsened as a result of social media. And naturally, money is linked to a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of it as well is in other cultures, for example, there's widely held beliefs around how evil or bad or corrupt the pursuit of wealth or money is. And therefore, there's this almost internal battle and conflict that people have when they either pursue success or even achieve a part of it, where they start subconsciously sabotaging their success because of what it may be perceived or seen as by their family, by their community. There's like almost a sense from the community that these individuals are abandoning them just by achieving certain financial milestones, and it creates a big mess. Other parts include, like I was mentioning earlier, because money is not necessarily talked about, we don't have the ability to formulate where we stand on it. So it remains to be a big taboo in a big dark area in our lives. So it creates problems in our marriages, in how we parent and how we interact with friends. And it's just this awkward topic that no one wants to touch. So it's like that hot potato that you just want to pass on and not deal with it. And so much more. And there's always, I can talk about this for forever. There's so many layers to this topic, and some are universal and some are very individual and unique to your own life circumstances.
Yeah, you've really touched on something in that, Assel. Certainly I was raised in a household in which money was a taboo topic, and it wasn't that my parents thought that money was bad or evil. It's just it was a topic that wasn't to be discussed among people of a certain social standing, I suppose. And I mean, we were not wealthy. I don't mean that. It's just that it was considered, I think, crass perhaps to discuss money openly.
Yes. Yeah.
So for me, when I left home as a late teenager to go to university, I had no money literacy at all.
Yeah.
And I figured it out because I had to, but it was a bumpy ride at times, and it would have been a lot easier if there had been open conversations about money, because my parents are actually very good with money. They were very good, but they didn't share that. And it wasn't they were trying to keep it from us. I think it was just they had been raised to believe that you don't talk about money. So is that something, this masterclass is geared towards women in midlife and beyond. And so do you find that's an attitude that that women in that demographic hold more tightly than perhaps younger women do, or is there a difference?
Well, the women in that demographic were raised by a certain generation, usually the post-depression era, and therefore these beliefs were very much universally held, especially during that time, because of how the depression impacted a lot of people and their own upbringing, and a lot of these belief systems are intergenerational. They're passed from one generation to the other. With the more newer generation, millennials and Gen Zs, for example, money is more wildly talked, because even if you're not having the chance to talk about it in your own household, social media is flooded with, whether it's podcasts or Instagram accounts, or lots of different opportunities where this conversation can be directed and engaging with the younger crowd. So there's more opportunities for these conversations to take place, and it's more on top of people's minds. However, that doesn't mean that there's still spaces where people can explore their own unique money trauma and emotions around it. The opportunity is there. How much the level of engagement is yet to be determined. I'm not sure about that, because I work with all sorts of generations, like I said, and across the board, there's these type of challenges of our inability to engage with the topic, given how much enormous of a pressure and fear and stigma and anxiety it holds.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So you are a financial therapist, and
Yeah.
again, as I said, I had not heard that term, but I love it. I love that idea. So what is financial therapy? How is the work you do now different from the work you were doing before? How does a therapy model work in this?
Thanks for that question. I love it, because there's so much need for awareness on this area. No one, I mean, very little people are going online searching financial therapist, because they didn't even know it exists, just like yourself. Yeah. So financial therapy is a field that emerged right after the 2008 market crash, where there were a lot of people in extreme financial distress based on the market volatility across the world. And they were going either to a financial planner to discuss their statements, or to a therapist to discuss their emotion. And when they're going to the planner was missing the right training and emotional tools to support their clients emotionally, because a planner is talking about the numbers and the market stats and economical updates, and sometimes that's not what you need to hear or even be talking about when you're experiencing a deep level of anxiety or distress. Now, when you go and speak to a therapist, the therapist lacks the financial understanding of certain things, or basic, a lot of therapists actually have a lot of money trauma as well. The self-help profession in general, people in the helping profession have a lot of money avoidance, for example. So there was a need for merging both skill sets, where somebody can have a strong financial background, be it financial planning, be it accounting, be it bookkeeping. It could have been from a different flood of gates, and as well as certain therapeutic interventions and training in how to handle people's emotions and make space for these conversations to naturally emerge and for healing to occur. So that is when the Financial Therapy Association started. I had not heard of it by the time I decided to pursue this path. I was just following my instincts, following my clients' feedback, because a lot of the times at that point in my life, a lot of my clients were telling me I'm their therapist, and I realized there's a lot of truth to that, because my personal style in financial planning was very much relationship based, where I did make space for that conversation to emerge, where I did care about people's emotion. I did want to support what they were going through, but I also lacked the training in that space. So after so many clients said the same thing, I'm like, I really want to go back to school and pursue therapy as a career, as a new possibility. And only my training program is 5 years in total. I think after a year 1 or 2 that I discovered the Financial Therapy Association and realized, whoa, there's a lot of people already on this path. It's based in the US. There's only very few in Canada right now. And every single financial therapist in that space came to financial therapy through a different path. But the commonality is some sort of training across both. Some are like heavily trained in one area and slightly trained in the other. Some are trained equally in both. Some have few ways in which these two paths intersect. But the idea is to start asking new questions to old problems and make space for people to explore their emotions, their relationships, their behaviors with money. So this is how different, like in the past, I just looked at the numbers and just gave practical advice. Now I actually delegate this part now, and I focus more on, making space for people to explore their money traumas, to heal their unprocessed emotion, unfinished business from the past, and things like that.
It's so fascinating. And you're a real visionary for recognizing that this is what was needed, and being really at the forefront of this new movement to help clients. I'm curious to know, some therapies, and I was interested to hear you refer to it as a kind of money trauma, and I think that is the case for a lot of people.
Of course.
Sometimes they're very aware of that trauma, and sometimes it's very deeply seated, and they're maybe not even aware of how dysfunctional their relationship to money is. Does the work you do, does it take a long time, as some therapies can, or do you find that people really, perhaps because there's such a desire to get more in control of their finances, that they really take it on in a way that helps them work through their emotional barriers more quickly? Is that do you find that? Or
great question. I personally believe healing is a lifelong journey. Like, as long as we're on this earth, we have some healing to do. However, you can certainly witness and experience what's the word? Behavioral modifications and changes and success and milestones along the way. So it all depends on where's the client at when they first interact with me. Are they ready for change? Because sometimes a lot of clients are referred not because they want to change, because somebody else in their life thinks they should. So the first part is making sure that client themselves are ready and willing to change. These are the only clients I like to work with, because otherwise it won't be fair to the client to engage in this work. So the first step is that readiness and that commitment and that decision that is autonomic, like it's your own decision. The second piece is awareness, and that is when we actually explore what are those money traumas, what are these emotions that you've been struggling with when it comes to money. Bringing awareness to how limiting some of your belief systems are in this area and how they're preventing you from reaching certain goals in your life today. So then after awareness is achieved, then you actually you work on processing some of the unfinished business, some of the emotions that are being stuck. And there's different interventions to how that can work, varying from how traumatic the experiences are. And I find that the word trauma itself actually has a lot of misconception infused in it, because we always associate trauma with drastic events that people go through, when in reality, trauma actually impacts all of us. And it could be as simple as, watching your parents work so hard when you grow up and not having enough time to play with you. I mean, that can be very traumatic when you're a child, and feeling like you're constantly unable to engage with the people you love the most because they're busy making money, and now you just created this negative association with money in your life subconsciously. That is a trauma, and I deal with a lot of people who have that trauma, for example. So then we work on the healing, and part of the issues that emerge, I create a different action steps, or sometimes it's more behavioral modification, sometimes it's more emotional work. It all depends on the case, but the first few steps are the same, like making that decision autonomically, bringing awareness into the situation, and then taking it from there.
Yeah, so the work that I do with clients as a coach, and many of my colleagues as well, what we find is clients will have a story about something, and often it's a story that started way back when they were young children, 3 years old, 4 or 5 years old, somewhere in there. And they either experienced something, maybe they've overheard a conversation, someone said something to them, And that 3-year-old, 4-year-old mind tries to make sense of it, make meaning of it. And then there's a story created based on that meaning about how that person should live. And I'm sure this happens a lot with money, where some almost offhand comment or a child observing parents, as you said, and how the parents interact with money deeply impacts the child's relationship with money. I'm sure there must be a lot of clients that aren't even aware of how deep and varied their challenges are.
Yeah.
But what do you find, what have you found when you work with a client who has discovered this and you've successfully helped her navigate through that so she gets out on the other side? What have you experienced in terms of transformation in your clients when that actually happens?
These are my favorite stories to share. There's so many, and this is why I'm such an advocate and a believer of the human potential. A lot of clients come thinking that whatever change they're hoping to achieve is not possible for them, and this is a very misleading and limiting belief that a lot of people hold on to. So with working together, you actually dismantle that belief and prove it wrong in so many ways. I've had clients quit their jobs and start businesses, double their income, move out and rent a place on their own for the first time. I've had marriages actually reconciled, but people were on the verge of breaking up, and eventually they came back to realizing they have so much more in common than they thought by some of the conflict resolution frameworks that I offer, especially around the topic of money, because naturally having conversations is challenging. We're not really taught how to do so, especially when the conversation is heavy like money is. So guiding people through certain frameworks can really be supportive. So I've seen all sorts of things change in people's attitudes about life. I've worked with people who were very depressed and were on the verge of becoming addicted to anxiety and depression pills, and eventually finding a way where they can rely more on mindful tools and other tools to cope and be engaged in their life again. So it really varies. So because some outcomes are strictly financial, like noticing a change in your bank account, a change in your income, a change in your spending habits, but some are also emotional, changing in how you feel and the quality of life and the fulfillment that you have, and other are relational. You show up differently in how you parent and how you are as a partner and who you are as a friend and who you are in your career. Like all sorts of changes are possible when this area is tackled.
I'm wondering, Assel, for the women that are on this masterclass, what advice, if you could give some advice to that specific demographic, what advice would you give for them to feel empowered about their finances, to feel in control of their finances? What would you say to them?
I love working with this demographic, especially because a lot of the women that come to me past 50 believe that there's not enough time to fix their issues. It's already too late for them. And they just have this disengaged mindset. Exactly. So part of the work is really to tell them that there's no such thing. It's never too late, and you should give it's that saying, like, it's better late than never. It really rings true, because healing is timeless. Like once you heal certain emotions, it's not just like you're healing your past, and it just has this ripple effect across the areas in your life, and it becomes less important that the fact that you did it in your 50 and you should have done it in your 30, because that shame carries very heavy on a lot of the women I work with in this demographic. So my biggest advice is, please don't use age and where you think you should be in life as an indicator to how you should engage with your life moving forward. And it takes courage to tackle this topic, and if you are recognizing this today, so be it.
Yeah. I know for a lot of people, money can be a very heavy burden. And when they find some resolution, either working with someone like you, or in some other means, such that they get control of their finances, it's such an empowering thing. It's so empowering. Assel, this has been just amazing. And I should point out, I don't think anybody would think that you're over 50. You're not over 50. You're much younger than that, but you are very wise. And
Thank you.
you have really shared some valuable, valuable insights with us today. So I'm
I
very
appreciate
grateful
that.
for that.
Thank you.
Now you have a gift that you'd like to share with everyone as well. Would you talk about that, please?
Yeah, I do really unique different workshops to support people in actually exploring what financial therapy can look like. So I'm offering a free workshop for your attendees. You simply find the link in in the email that you're going to be sending, and the workshop is called Money Mindset. And I'm focusing on 3 specific money mindsets that people didn't even know that they have control over, or the fact that it even impacts their financial behaviors. And yeah, we take it from there.
Perfect. That
Sorry,
is,
my dog again.
that's okay. He's just punctuating that
Yeah,
it's an amazing gift that you're giving and so generous. And
yeah, thank
so
you.
I just want to thank you, Assel, for taking the time, sharing your wisdom with all of us. It's been so helpful,
Thank you.
so generative. Thank you so much. I
I
really
really
appreciate you
appreciate
taking the
it. Thank you
time.
so much for having me. Take care.
My pleasure.
Bye.